Romania is going through an unprecedented political crisis that has exposed the deep flaws in our democratic system. The annulment of the first round of elections, followed by the banning of Călin Georgescu, showed how far the establishment is willing to go to maintain control. This was not about legality, it was about political maneuvering. The acceptance of my candidacy does not indicate a return to democratic normality. It is merely an attempt by those in power to contain the growing public outrage. The establishment calculated that rejecting yet another candidate would be too obvious and, of course, too dangerous. But let's be clear, their goal remains the same: to keep control, to silence opposition, and to preserve their power. The power is not theirs, the power is at the people. The people must remain vigilant because democracy in Romania is still under attack. Political establishment bears the primary responsibility for this crisis. For decades, they have operated as an isolated elite, using state institutions to maintain their grip on power. Corruption, media manipulation, and lawfare are their tools of choice. However, we cannot ignore the broader context. The European Union should be a guardian of democratic principles, yet it has largely turned a blind eye to the abuses happening in Romania. Selective democracy, where certain governments are scrutinized while others are given free rein, only weakens the EU, in my opinion. So Brussels must decide: will it uphold democracy across the continent, or will it continue allowing the national elites to manipulate institutions while pretending that everything is fine? Well, let me be blunt. The problem is not the idea of European cooperation. The problem is how it is currently managed. The European Union was meant to be an alliance of free nations working together, not a bureaucratic system where power is concentrated in the hands of few unelected bureaucrats. Romania must not be a passive participant in this system. We must fight for a reformed EU. One where national sovereignty is respected, where decision-making is transparent, and where economic policies benefit all citizens, not just political elites. If the EU continues its current path of centralization and double standards, the risk of fragmentations will only grow. Our goal should not be to abandon Europe, but to ensure that Europe remains a union of sovereign nations, not a super state. Well, the idea of an EU army raises some concerns. While stronger European defense cooperation is necessary, it should never come at the expense of national sovereignty. Defense is one of the most fundamental responsibilities of a nation. No country should be forced into funding or participating in military operations that do not serve its direct national interests. Furthermore, the idea that Brussels can unilaterally decide to withdraw money from citizens' accounts is outrageous. Taxation and defense spending should be determined by national governments accountable to their own people, not by unelected bureaucrats. If this continues, we risk moving toward a system where European nations no longer control their own security policies, and this is a dangerous path. So I'm saying no to an European army, and I'm saying yes to continuing NATO efforts as a defensive alliance. In my opinion, the biggest threat to freedom in Europe comes from within, specifically from political elites who believe they are entitled to rule without accountability. I don't believe in dictators. I believe in the will of the people and democracy. It is not one person or one institution, but a mindset that has taken hold among certain power structures. Specifically, the belief that democracy is only valid when it produces the correct outcome. There is no correct outcome. That dissenting voices must be silenced, and that citizens should accept decisions without question or without being questioned. This is why we must resist political censorship, the suppression of free speech, and the growing trend of governance through unelected institutions. True democracy means that power belongs to the people, not a political class that believes it knows best. Let's not be naive, please. This was not an act of generosity or a sudden commitment to democracy. The decision was a direct result of public pressure. After the unprecedented removal of Călin Georgescu, blocking another candidate would have completely shattered any remaining illusion of a fair election. The Romanian people have had enough, and their frustration was impossible to ignore. That being said, we are not celebrating just yet. The establishment has already proven that it is willing to manipulate the process and the free elections. We will not rest until we see a truly free and fair election where the Romanian people, not unelected elites, decide their future. Good question. We are much closer than most people realize. Democracy is not just about voting, it's about having real choices, about institutions that serve the people rather than the ruling class. When candidates are removed for political reasons, when the media is controlled by a handful of elites, when judicial systems are used as a political weapon, these are all signs of creeping authoritarianism. And this is not just a Romanian problem. Across Europe, we are seeing similar tactics being used, discrediting political opponents, restricting free speech, and using vague accusations of disinformation to silence debate. The warning signs are already there. The question is, will European nations fight back while they still can, or will they allow their freedoms to be slowly eroded? So 3 decisions. 1. Restoring trust in our democratic institutions. The election crisis has shown that the Romanian institutions need to reform. I will push transparency measures, judicial independence, and protections against political interference in elections. The people must trust that their will matter. 2. Economic reform that benefits all Romanians, not just the elite. We must ensure that the EU funds, foreign investment, and national resources reach the Romanian citizens. This means cutting corruption, cutting red tape, supporting small business, and assuring that economic growth leads to measurable impact on the quality of life of normal citizens. And 3, a strong but independent foreign policy. Romania must stand as an equal partner in Europe and in NATO. We will remain committed to the regional security and cooperation, but we will ensure that all decisions, whether on defense, trade, or diplomacy, serve the interests of the Romanian people first. Thank you for this interview and this opportunity.